Everyone. I want to welcome you to this first webinar of Diplo Africa in 2025. We hold quarterly webinars, and this is our first in the year. And we're excited to host each one of you, excited that you are here and are interested in the topic. So our topic for today is digital diplomacy and tourism in Africa, unlocking opportunities for growth and collaboration. So we have a great panel with us, and we are going to introduce them after we have, I hope Dr. Jovan is here.
Yes.
Yes, okay. So I will give this opportunity to Jovan to introduce himself and DiploFoundation to each one of us. Thank you. So welcome, Jovan.
Thank you, Mavende. Good afternoon to everybody at today's call. My name is Jovan Kurbale. I'm director of DiploFoundation and head of Geneva Internet Platform. And it's my great honor to address today's webinar, which is covering one interesting topic. Mavende always comes with some relevant and interesting, not typical topics. And this topic is how to link digital AI developments and digital diplomacy in general with development of tourism in Africa. As we know, the tourism, it's not about diplomats being tourists. It's about tourism as an important economic branch in many countries, definitely in some even more, like Kenya, for example, and how to link it to the digital developments. Therefore, and digital diplomacy. Therefore, this interplay has many layers. It has a practical layer of diplomats, let's say here in Geneva, using digital tools from African countries, using digital tools to promote their countries in different ways by creating AI chatbots about tourism in their country, by having some sort of desk offices promotion online through social media and other campaigns. It is definitely an issue of the digitalization of tourism itself and support for different social media and communication platforms. Therefore, I'm sure that you will have a very interesting and engaging discussion. On this point, I thought of bringing this for a few aspects that could be relevant for your discussion, and I'm sure the experts, people who are dealing on day-to-day basis with these issues, will bring another additional layers of meaning and relevance. We at Diplo are trying to find the practical solution for practical problems. There is a lot of hype these days on technology, on AI, but ultimately we have to ask ourselves how this technology can impact our lives, including economy, including a question of tourism. Therefore, I would like to encourage you to think about practical solutions and the way how we can improve economy, social well-being of, in this case, African continent, but also all individuals involved in this process. Therefore, I wish you insightful and inspiring discussion during this webinar. Mavende, over to you.
Thank you so much, Jovan, for that introduction. Indeed, we hope that through this conversation that we'll have this afternoon, morning, or evening, depending on where you are, will be insightful. So I would like to introduce our panelists for today. I'll just... So I'll start with Professor. Professor Wasiu Babalola is from Nigeria, and he's a distinguished polymath, renowned for his expansive expertise in hotel and tourism management, operations management, marketing, forensic accounting, audit, international business law, and corporate strategic management. Professor holds dual PhDs in hospitality management and forensic accounting and audit, and other qualifications in accounting, law, human resource, hospitality, tourism, management, among others, bridging the gap between academia and industry with unparalleled proficiency. So he is a certified accreditor for program and institutional accreditation, as well as a professor of hotel management and tourism. He's also a chartered member of the National Association of AI Practitioners, that is NAAIP, reflecting his deep engagement with the transformative role of technology and innovation in modern industries. In the professional sphere, Professor Babalola is the Senior Vice President for Africa at Continent-Wide Hotels, which is a hotel chain that has more than 100 hotels in 13 countries across the 4 continents. His strategic role includes serving as a director and trustee of the African Travel Commission and formerly a managing director of West Africa at Swiss International Hotels and Resorts, making significant global contributions to the hospitality and tourism industry. So we welcome you, Professor, and thank you for accepting our invitation to come and speak to us. I'm then going to introduce Susan. Welcome, Susan. Federation, public international relations leader and business manager training. He has over management, customer relations, disaster management, marketing, and leadership acumen. She was instrumental in setting up the Secretariat Administrative Department of the Kenya Tourism Federation, as well as oversee the operations of safety and communication center at the Kenya Tourism Federation. She currently serves as the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Tourism Federation since 2015 to date. The KTF is a umbrella body of the private sector in tourism charged with advocacy for a conducive business environment for the tourism sector. And she carries a wealth of work experience with over 12 years in tourism and hospitality. So with that, we welcome Susan. Thank you for accepting our invitation and being able to join us today. I'm then going to introduce Dr. Isabella Chelotti Mapelu. Dr. Isabella is a senior lecturer in the School of Hospitality and Tourism, Department of Hospitality, Tourism and Travel Management, Murang'a University of Technology, Nairobi, Kenya. She is an expert in the area of hospitality operations management, which mainly entails practical training and research in areas of area of hotel and hospitality management. She has a PhD in tourism management. She also trains students in tourism-related issues, especially travel and tourism economics. And she has a wealth of experience when it comes to supervising students in areas related to tourism, hospitality, and travel. She has been doing this for the last 16 years. Additionally, she has participated in training workshops and seminars that relate to hospitality training, packaging and marketing, the North Rift of Kenya, I believe, as a tourist destination and creating demand for tourism and hotel services in the Rift Valley circuit of Kenya. She has developed 9 policy documents within and without the university without the university, including one on Turkana County, that is in Kenya, on feasibility study report of Labokat and Kataboy Eco Lodges in Turkana County. So we welcome you, Isabella. Thank you for accepting our invitation. So the last person I'm going to introduce is Roshan Nanayakara. He's a senior advisor, M&E, Heritage and Tourism to the Honorable Minister of Art, Culture, Tourism and Creative Economy of Nigeria. Rosan Nanakara is a young professional with expertise in software development, project management, monitoring and evaluation, policy development and community engagement in private and public sectors, as well as the development sectors. He has led projects in DFI, private and public sector funded projects in several sectors, with the bulk of his previous experience stemming from his work in agriculture, healthcare, and humanitarian sectors. So thank you and welcome, Roseanne, sorry, and we look forward to interacting with you during this webinar. So with that, I would like to welcome Dr. Kate Kitao, who is our moderator for today's webinar. Thank you. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you very much, Mwende. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all our listeners and participants. And I'm very excited today to be moderating this extremely distinguished panel that has expertise well-rounded. We have somebody from the Tourism Federation, we have a distinguished hotelier, we have somebody from academia, and we also have somebody from the ministry and policy making. So I think we'll have all our questions very well covered. Now, I'll start with you, Susan, if you don't mind me using first names. How has digital transformation changed how tourists discover, book, experience, travel in Africa? And are African destinations taking full advantage of digital marketing?
Thank you, Kate. I hope I'm loud and clear.
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. It's interesting that we are discussing this topic because we were led to this digital space by the COVID-19. And I would say from the time that we could not do in-person or physical interaction with the tourist, then the digital space became the next instant mode of communication. So when you ask how it has actually driven the tourist into the destination, and I'll use Kenya because this is where I am, we have seen people becoming very creative and putting information on the digital space so that the tourists can interact with these places, maybe by visuals, putting videos, and maybe putting this one you put on your face so that you can experience the product while you're away, but you can feel almost touch. We used to watch the movies with it at the movies. So that space has really enabled even the small, medium enterprise tourism practitioners and travels and hospitality practitioners to bring their product to the market. Because initially, before the digital space, it used to be traveling all the way to a certain destination so that people can participate in exhibitions, in all the other shows that could be there, networking. But this space, the digital space, has really seen a game changer in how destinations can attract across the continent tourists into that particular destination. And in this case, in Kenya, we have had the tourists, the intending tourists, actually be able to appreciate and even have a variety from to choose from, because it is not only what we can Photoshop, but this is a real destination that has been put on the site, and a tourist can watch a video and compare to another place, and maybe even discover more places that were not available in the past. So yes, the digital opportunities in tourism have seen us recover even faster from the COVID-19, and now the businesses are thriving, and it's across the board, as I said, from the operators that are seasoned and the SMEs and the micro practitioners. So thank you, Kate, for that. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Susan. Certainly an excellent message of hope, where not only the big players, but the small players are able to find their space in the digital world. And that leads me straight into my question for Professor Babalola. You run a traditional hotel chain, I'm sure a luxury hotel chain. How have you been impacted by the emerging platforms? Of course, we all know Airbnb, Hotel.com, Booking.com, and many other, those are the international ones. But even here in Kenya, we have Jumia and several others, where many people are now leasing their homes or little apartments to tourists directly. How has this impacted? Is it a good thing, or is it something where the traditional hoteliers have to maybe fight back? Professor Babalola?
Yeah, thank you so much, Catherine, and good afternoon, everyone. Greetings from Nigeria. One thing about digital technology, it's often a disruption, and depending on how you approach it, you may use it to your advantage, or it takes you off market. But if we look at what has happened from the western part of Africa with the advent of other players like Airbnb, Booking.com into the market, you will realize that one, even though some think it's a disruption to the normal way we've been doing business, it also creates avenue for the traditional ways for them to see opportunity to sell on a larger scale, like a smaller hotel in maybe in a remote area of your town, Southwest Nigeria, now has opportunity to put himself on the same platform where the bigger boys are now doing businesses. So it is not necessarily a disruption, but it's also opened up the market. Also, if you look at other things it has done, it has also enabled African startups to be able to leverage on digital world, to be able to bring out other competing disruptions, like we have Jumia.com, which is competing now with the likes of Booking.com, Expedia, gathering up markets, businesses within the local market. Now, also considering the population where we find ourselves, and considering the demographic of the African population, the youthful population that are used to their phones, they are used to the digital hub, you now realize these things are now becoming part of our livelihood. So for any business to survive, you have to take conscious effort to also participate in this digital space. So to us, Airbnb, Booking.com, the likes of Expedia with their numerous applications into the market has not only been a disruption to us in Africa, it has also given us opportunity for startups in digital businesses to come up. Now we have Jumia, not only in Nigeria, there's Jumia in Kenya, there's Jumia in Ghana, there's Jumia in other countries. And this is making Africa coming to see themselves that they too can play this game. and they can do it to the benefit of the businesses. So I say thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Babalola, for that message of hope. And that really leads me very naturally into the question that I have for Dr. Isabella Chilotti. And that is that, as Professor Babalola has pointed out, I think one new market that this technology has opened up is the youth. I know many young people who previously perhaps could not have afforded to go to traditional hotels. They are able to find something affordable using these other platforms. I also noticed that there's a lot of citizen journalism taking place, meaning that people and many Africans, in fact, travel to each other's countries, and then they make travel logs where they have videos which they post on all the platforms, the TikToks, the YouTubes, the Instagrams. They post content there about where they've been and the experience that they have. And many, many, many people are first introduced to destinations using these kind of platforms. How do you see online citizen journalism being a force for good? Is it part of your curriculum as you teach? And how can you encourage your students to present a positive picture of their country? We've seen them doing the opposite. What do you feel is some of the strategies we could approach to create a new generation of citizen journalists who can really promote their countries and their tourist destinations? Go ahead, Isabella.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Kate, for that insightful observation. We've seen generally young people are, they have really picked up what we are calling digital technologies, that is using digital prowess to generally communicate with each other. And Kenya recently saw a very powerful, how can I say, a powerful generation that came out to really speak to serious issues affecting the country. But my also take is that we can continue to harness these digital technologies in order to encourage them to actually post positive things about what is going on in the country, positive products. We've seen an uprising of things we call content creation. And apart from the daily comedy and generally things that affect youth, once in a while you find them talking about the exciting places they have visited in the country, some which are very places you wouldn't think that exist in the country. You find them on the platform posting pictures of where they've been, some pristine places that generally have not been explored. And even as we teach, what we are trying to encourage is, because for a long time as a country, we have continually over-relied on traditional tourism products of beach and wildlife. But we want to now move into other forms of tourism, like cultural tourism, which remains unexplored. But through media, we've seen people enjoying rich culture, like of the Turkana, for instance, of the Maasai, of the Samburu, for instance, which have been brought to life, and they continually being brought to life, and therefore they market these tourism products, the culture of these people, and therefore adding into another other products besides what we just traditionally know. The only thing I can say is that there is more space for more growth, for more exploration, to be able to explore more and to talk more, give out positive stories, like present the Maasai, the Samburu, the Somali, the Turkana, giving out positive stories about these cultures, and therefore avoiding only giving stories that maybe show these cultures in a negative lenses. So we continually, it is work in progress, and I think we continually are working towards encouraging the young people to look at all these rare things that can be communicated to the world and encourage actually tourism. In my line of work, we've done research and realized that there's so much potential, like from the Asian markets who really value things like culture. So we find that with that, if we encourage, give out positive stories about our culture, this form of tourism can eventually be encouraged. And then my last point is that when it comes to journalism, sometimes it is very hard to control what people are going to post, especially in the digital space. But when we continually train them, show them new products, new perspectives, show them generally what is beautiful about Kenya. People who want to see things like bird life, for instance. People who want to see things like bird life, which is quite an interesting product. People who want to visit what we call pristine destinations, places which are rarely visited, but they are very beautiful. Then we can, things like landscape, for instance, things like even a place like Naivasha, which has very interesting features to see, then generally will make that the destination as a Kenya to be seen in positive lenses, and therefore promote the growth of tourism. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Isabella, for that. And we look forward to this new generation of young Kenyans and young Nigerians, Ghanaians, Zimbabweans, South Africans, who will show the reality of this continent and take away our focus from maybe just wildlife and a few issues to the richness of the culture and the facilities that we have on this continent. Thank you very much for that. I turn once again to Susan, and we have, as well as having new tourism, we have a new tourist, and they're concerned about emerging issues like environmental sustainability and ethical sourcing of goods and services and so on. How are the tourism sector thinking about using the technology to convince this new tourism market that we are doing things properly? I was surprised to hear on a show a few weeks ago that Thailand receives, I think, around 140 million visitors a year, as opposed to Kenya's 3 million. And the president there was talking about sustainability, because if you have that many people visiting your country, the use of water, the littering and rubbish and all that becomes a major issue. So what are we doing to make sure that we are sustainable, and also that we tell others that we are sustainable so that they can make good decisions about visiting us? Susan, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Dr. Catherine. Okay. Interesting question, because as you said, sometimes is it more about the numbers of tourists going to a particular destination, or is it about quality tourists going to a particular destination. And I will speak straight into sustainability. Under Kenya Tourism Federation, we have an association that is called Ecotourism Kenya. And Ecotourism Kenya under Kenya Tourism Federation is the one that has, let's say, standards of how tourism, travel, and hospitality businesses should operate. And within those standards, then they hold, they give awards, or they award those that have gone into the area of sustainability, and they have to prove what they are doing in the area of sustainability. An airline, for example, they are operating in Kenya. They are flying to Masai Mara, to Diani, to all those places in Kenya. But what are they doing? So, for instance, is to track what are the carbon footprints that being emitted, and what even the ethical measures of putting up an eco camp or putting up a hotel, a restaurant. So all those things add up to responsible tourism. Recently, as recent as 2024, under the UNEP and Kenya Tourism Federation, we came up with guidelines for sustainability in tourism, not only for Kenya, but for the East Africa region. And we are also encouraging it. It's not, when things are put as a punishment or a must, then there are issues, because then people shall rebel. But when it is put and encouragement is given that if you need to be on this platform, for example, if you need to be on Kenya Tourism Federation website as an eco-friendly or sustainable destination or product, or Ecotourism Kenya, or Kenya Tourism Board, which is the marketing arm of the country for tourism, then you have to meet these guidelines. So with that, we think that we will encourage them. And when we come to carbon footprint tracking, we are encouraging them to at least develop a credible platform that can help tourists to track on their website, on their marketing material, and what they are putting online. For example, I know a number of tour operators in the national parks, game reserves, have already put that they are using the electric, or are they called these ones that use fuel and also use the electric vehicles to do game drives. So that then will encourage the tourists, when they are looking for a sustainable or eco-friendly destination or eco-friendly product, then they'll be able to actually see for themselves digitally or online, on website, on the materials that have been put there, how a destination or a product is putting the practices or is doing sustainable tourism. And that then drives the traffic towards that destination. And I'll pick Masai Mara, for example. Recently, they increased the park fee. That's why I started by asking, is it about the number or is it about the quality? And having done that, in my view, then it will be a bit limiting. And even they changed the hours of touring. It used to be a 24-hour ticket, but now it's a 12-hour ticket, just to ensure that these places are not over-toured, because the human impact on a destination is very huge. And then to go with that is that through the research, tourism research machinery, we are able to, there's a sustainability report or study that was done last year and just launched this year, actually 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago. It is to check how sustainable is a product. For example, how sustainable is a beach in Kenya? As somebody said previously, my fellow panelists, that it is good to look at what are other products that we have, because maybe even over tourism at the beach is not good for the marine life. So such things like that. And when I speak into ethical sourcing platforms, that is creating platforms that are highly ethically sourced. And the souvenirs, the materials that are being used to produce those souvenirs, are they really ethically sourced, or are they there to just sell? And recently we had a photography competition, and there was a category for sustainability. I was one of the judges on that, for that photography, and we had a sustainable category that really showed that the plastic that was being banned, or the plastic that we still use, it should not be used as a single-use plastic. And there were entries that showed marvelous things that have been made, even souvenirs, out of plastic. And that way we were able to see that actually sustainable tourism is the way to go. And that is what we are preaching, and that is what we are awarding from the ecotourism platform that I mentioned earlier. We also look at how are these establishments, especially managing their waste. Like Nairobi National Park, where I am, because my office is at the Kenya Wildlife Service headquarters, there is no entering the gate for game drive with plastic bottles. Such efforts are the ones that will bring that tourist who is sustainable centric or sustainability centric to visit. And as I conclude, it's also we are doing digital education and awareness for tour drivers, for hoteliers, even the hotel when they are packing the breakfast or the sundown drinks for the tourists to go and enjoy. What materials are they using? What products are they using to package that? And we are encouraging tourists to also give back to the communities that are experiencing this. And before I depart, in Kenya, as you may know, there is a plant. We have quite a number of trees to be planted. I don't know the figure total, 50 million or something. But there is also that campaign, One Tourist, One Tree. It might not be the tourist who's planting that tree, but it could be the tour operator that is having the tourists when they go to a certain destination. The tour operator then facilitates for a tree to be planted for each tourist. Thank you for that question.
Thank you very much, Susan. I can see you're very, very passionate about that issue of sustainability, as we should all be. I'm glad to tell you that I do recycle my plastics, and I'm a great supporter of all efforts to keep our environment clean and healthy. I'll move on to another issue which is maybe raising concern or eyebrows in the tourism sector. So Professor Babalola, there's a lot of, there's competing needs. The need to register tourists and even to track them because of security reasons and other reasons, competing with an increasing amount of legislation around the globe about data privacy. The most well-known being the General Data Protection Regulation from the European Union. Are African tourism stakeholders at risk of legal challenges when collecting and using visitor data? And what best practices do you follow in your own environment, and which perhaps could become a best practice elsewhere? Professor Babalola, did you hear my question? Okay, we seem to have lost the professor. So maybe as I'm waiting to find out where he is, I can move on to Isabella, who I believe is still with us. AI is really transforming tourism. Often, recently I used one of the platforms, and when I had to inquire about an issue, I was quickly directed to a chatbot. I don't want to tell you what my experience was, but I can tell you it was not completely satisfactory. But people are also using artificial intelligence for planning their trips, for visa processing, and many other issues. Now, how can Africa stay ahead? For many countries, maybe we have limited capacity in this area. And what are you doing, maybe at the university level? And should we prioritize African interaction, human interaction, because we have so many young people, many of them are looking for job opportunities. Could we even make that a differentiator to people who are just used to having to deal with chatbots and so on? Sometimes hearing a human voice on the other end is really refreshing. So what do you think? Maybe tell us a little bit about your own thoughts in this area.
Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you very much for that question, Dr. Kate. When it comes to AI, it is something that has really taken the world by a serious storm, as we've been looking at what is happening all over the world. We've seen countries, especially in the Middle East, even putting up whole ministries on what we call AI. We've seen Western countries really they're going big on AI. And what the only thing I can start by saying is that this is the kind of technology we may be cautious, a bit averse to it, but it is technology that has taken off and it's not going back. And much as Africa and maybe Kenya and even the tourism sector in our country, we can say maybe we are still lagging behind when it comes to appreciating the benefits of AI, but the benefits far much outweigh the what we call the setbacks. It's just like even when we started with computers, some people were very were really terrified. What are computers going to do? Are they going to take our jobs and so on? So my take is that AI is here to stay, and the tourism industry has a lot to benefit, as you talked about chatbots. Remember, we are talking about websites where somebody wants to make a booking, for instance, an airline wants to book an airline. They want to find out certain information. You look at our website, they're showing maybe the different types of attraction. We want these websites to be interactive, okay? And therefore, AI comes in to help, because human interaction, sometimes you'll never be there 24/7. And even it's expensive to keep humans manning some of these websites. But when we have chatbots, they make this very easy. It also answers some of these questions, some like a few clarifications when, sorry, my video stopped. I hope you're hearing me.
Yes, so we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So like when somebody wants a simple clarification, then things like chatbots, which are AI-based, then they become very critical. But on the other hand, I would like to say that as countries, we may not have invested a lot in AI. Maybe we are still lagging behind. Just like when the digital age came in, we still lag behind. So my take is that Africa needs to jump on this bandwagon so that they are not left behind. because we have a lot to benefit from AI. Remember, AI, we can use it for things like for doing so many things, even in our businesses. When it comes to strategic partnerships, AI is very critical. When it comes to marketing, like relationship marketing, AI is still critical. So my take is that we still have a long way to go, like putting up infrastructure, even coming up with an AI policy as a country. We still need to really put in a lot to come up with AI policy. People even need to be sensitized on what is this AI about, because even sensitization alone is still quite inadequate. And then we generally need to put in a lot so that we make it work for us, especially in the tourism sector, because it's something we badly need and we continually need to work on it. When it comes to university, there are tidbits of research going on. But as I said, because of lack of enough sensitization, people have continually have misconceptions about what AI is and what it can and what it cannot do. And then even to the risk of actually coming up with ideas that it may not even be useful for us, okay, after all, conveniently so. So I think perception out there is that we continually need to educate, to sensitize people, and even to tell them the importance of AI when it comes to tourism sector. When you talk about virtual reality, okay, or augmented reality, AI is very critical. And therefore, I think my take is a lot more needs to be done, and so that we actually jump on that bandwagon where the rest of the world is actually getting benefits from AI in their enterprises. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Isabella, for that insight. Professor Babatola, I'm very, very happy that you're back with us. I did have a question for you, but before I turn to that question, I know there are questions in the chat. Those who placed their questions in the chat, I'm just very shortly after Professor Babatola answers this question, I will give a round of questions drawn from the chat. So please, all my panelists, please, you can be looking to see if there's something there that you can contribute to. There's also Mr. Mohammed, who has asked several times about Diplo courses. So Mwende, you could also be preparing just to briefly answer Mr. Mohammed's question about Diplo courseware. So Professor Babatola, I had asked a question which I think you didn't catch, which was about the phrase that Susan Ongalo used, which was responsible tourism. And one of the areas of concern is the area of data privacy. During the course of tourism, there is data that is collected from tourists by hotels, by visa authorities, and so on. But at the same time, the tourists themselves do photograph people, dancers, and other cultural actors. They do collect things from the country and collect information, which sometimes they post. Do you think that in Africa we're doing enough to both comply with emerging data protection regimes globally? And are we doing enough to also protect our own citizens from the type of data which can be collected by visitors to our country, perhaps without recourse to really formally informing the subjects and getting their consent? Please give us a little insight into this area, Professor Babalola.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Catherine, for the question. Thank you so much, Dr. Catherine, for the question. Data is something that is very interesting, and one needs to be very careful when dealing with data. With digital technology, we realize that tourists, visitors have access to all these data, and they are readily available. Now, despite the fact that we need to strike a balance, now let's look at the positive side of making this data available. Now, as Africans, what has this done for us? One thing is certain, that making this data available has enabled us to address some misconceptions about ourselves as Africans by those who have data to share on the spot. A situation whereby our data has been at least misrepresented by the third world. And it is when these visitors comes around and they share this data, it comes with some certain level of authentication of what we actually represent. This just, by the way, I was once asked at an international gathering that there is a crisis in Nigeria. And I said, well, I just traveled down from Nigeria. I said, look, but there is Boko Haram. And I said, do you know, yes, I traveled from Lagos, but Boko Haram, if I had to fly to where we have this crisis, I'm going to be on here for like 2.5 hours. And it will take me just an hour to travel from London to maybe any part of Europe, maybe to Paris or to Stuttgart. So are you saying if there is an issue in Paris, we're going to shut down London? So these are information that are readily Africans when we allow visitor stories to access our data and use. But we also need to create a balance between accessibility and having the access, the usage of that data within the ambit of the law. And I think that's where Africa.
Sorry, we've lost you, Professor. Professor, maybe you can stop your video so that hopefully at least we can get your audio. Okay, so we've lost Professor again. Maybe there was a poor connection. So I'd like to turn to the chat right now. And as we're waiting for Professor to come back, Wende, could you, yes, I can see you've answered the question. Yes, go ahead, Professor, go ahead. Please go ahead, Professor.
Hello.
Hello, yes, we can hear you. I think there's a challenge with the connection. So as we wait for Professor to come back, I can see that Mokhtar's question has been answered, but there are a number of other questions. There's somebody who has posted their page. So those who are interested in agri-tourism and so on can certainly follow that link. So there's a question here which comes from Sarah. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your second name, where she says that she understands that some of the pictures taken by international tourists are taken to the first world and they monetize. Is that okay, or do we need to protect our natural resources and monetize them ourselves? I'll throw that to Susan. And Susan, we will concede if Professor is able to get back, because we've been a little unfair to him. But for now, could you please address Sarah's question?
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Catherine. For the sake of my pronouncing on it, could you read her question again?
She was asking about the pictures, and I think there are other things that tourists do. I've seen them buy cultural artifacts, and then they go back and they monetize. I've even seen a very popular board game called Jijenga. So the words they learn, the cultural resources are monetized. So she's asking, do we need to protect our natural resources and monetize them ourselves?
Thank you for that question. I think, to be honest, there must be a license, permission to use somebody's picture or somebody's video that you've taken of them, maybe performing culturally. So I do not think it's ethical just to take someone's photo without their consent. And maybe we should introduce, now that we're in the age of digital, maybe we should introduce, and it may be an opportunity as well, as it's a threat already, that each place they go, especially culturally, to get entertained or to visit, sometimes it's philanthropy tourism that takes place, and you find maybe a certain tourist, a philanthropist tourist will go, let's take, for instance, maybe Samburu, and the situation they are going to address, or the place they are going to visit, is a situation that should not be broadcasted. Otherwise, it will not dignify the people that were visited. Yes, it's done for a good cause, but is it ethical to take? And I've seen even instances where people use such photos to even attract funding, not for the people they looked for that money for, but for themselves. It is not ethical. I do not think it is, and I would advocate that measures are taken, and maybe prior permissions are sought, and this can be done digitally, that the community is also made aware that if this happens, they should ask. So where are you going to use my photo? Where are you going to put my video? And am I agreeing? If it's a minor, then there should be an adult consent on behalf of the minor. And if it is an adult, then there should be consent and prior permission given. It is an opportunity, as I said, that probably we should take it up and just sensitize both the tourists and the community where they will be touring. So that is how I would choose to address this one for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Professor, I can see that you're back, and perhaps you could just complete what you wanted to say about data, and thank you for focusing on the opportunity of defeating many misconceptions about Africa, but at the same time protecting, which we've continued to talk about as Susan has given her views. And I think this is an opportunity also for technology, because we can automate the discovery of these resources now that AI can interpret images. So we don't have to wait for somebody to discover it. The technology can discover these images and perhaps even have automated remedies for this purloining of cultural artifacts without seeking proper permission. Please go ahead, Professor Babalola. I hope this time we'll benefit from your wisdom.
Thank you so much, Doc. My sincere apologies for the break in communication due to data issue. Now, what I'm trying to point, I've looked at the positive side, but I'm trying to also comment on what is required so that we don't experience, or we don't allow the use of digital communication to exceed the benefit to us. And in doing that, we need to consciously and intentionally engage government in ensuring we strengthen our cybersecurity laws. And in doing this, Africa, we are endowed with a lot of cultures. And to make those cultures unique and original, there is need for some levels of protection, irrespective of digital exposure. And how do we do this? When tourists visit this destination, there should be laws that regulate at what point can you go in with your cameras, because our cultures, Africa is so blessed that we have so many cultures. I know of some events, some cultural events in Nigeria that comes with a caveat. You cannot attend this event with a camera. If you must come with your camera, with your phone, you will be charged extrally to give you charge extra for you to get access to be able to use this, at least use these pictures. Also, we expect that NGOs, government, platforms like this, we need to carry out digital, at least literacy information to the entire African continent, for them to understand the value of their keeping their information, the value of seeking consent before you use people's information. It is very key. And also, we also need to move into AI. AI can enable us to identify, at least track misinformation when it comes to use of digital information by visitors or by our tourists. But as far as I'm concerned, I think the advantages of allowing visitors or tourists to have access to our digital information as per our destinations outweigh the negativity. And those negative aspects, we expect the government to step in. Let us have cyber laws, let us have data, at least restriction laws, so that we can preserve and protect our culture while we still use it in ensuring we create the necessary diplomacy among Africa and the entire world. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Babalola, and we thank God that we heard you so clearly this time, and thank you very much for that contribution, which creates an excellent segue into the next topic, which is also drawn from the chat, but it's an area of great interest to Diplo and to me, and that is the area of cyber diplomacy. What role do diplomats have in all this? We've talked about tourism, we've talked about technology, and we know that there's some global policy making taking place on the diplomatic front. At the UN, there's the Digital Compact, there's the Cybersecurity Convention, there's the open-ended working group on cybersecurity and other issues all going on. Now, it happens that African countries sometimes don't have a lot of resources to send experts to attend all these international forums. So our representative is often the diplomat from our mission. I'll ask all of you, beginning with Isabella, what can digital diplomats do to promote tourism, to protect African issues like the one we've just discussed on data on the international front, and how should they be prepared? What kind of education and training should they be getting so that even if they are just the last stop, the expert cannot come, but the mission diplomat is there to represent us as Africans? What should we be doing to prepare them and to equip them and to empower them? So I'll start with Isabella and then go on to Susan and then to Professor. Isabella, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Doc, for your question. What I can say is that when it comes to diplomacy or diplomats, I think the first assignment is generally to teach them about our culture, because sometimes our culture and even about our ways of life, sometimes even about our beliefs, because when they have knowledge about what our cultures are all about, then they'll not misrepresent sometimes some of our cultures. And then after they have learned about our cultures, then we also show them the positives about our cultures, because they become now the brand ambassadors of our tourism destinations. And even when tourists, diplomats come, they move around our countries to different places. That positive image, like when you talk about using their digital platforms, that snaps that they take maybe in the depths of Masai Mara is worth 1,000 words of what maybe magical Kenya is going to use to try and market the country. For instance, somebody in the depths of, let's say, in the depths of Australia, who does not know about Kenya, but sees their diplomat in the depths of Masai Mara, enjoying a gig with Masai warriors, that gives a positive image and therefore encourages Australian citizens to want and visit Kenya and find out what is it about Kenya. When we find a diplomat going to somewhere like Turkana, the beaches of pristine sand in Lake Turkana, for instance, that gives a positive image. So the first thing is education, and then we encourage them to communicate positive aspects of the country where they are working back home. And that becomes generally a positive thing for as a diplomat. And even the digital platforms, remember, like also when you talk about digital diplomacy, nowadays there's nobody without a social media handle. Twitter, Facebook, when you talk about Instagram, when they talk about positive things that are happening in those countries, post those images, those becomes what we call, I think, digital.
Sorry, Isabella, we've lost you for a moment. So as she logs back on, perhaps we can turn to Susan. And Susan, is there any contact between the Tourism Federation, for example, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in promoting the issues which are important to the tourism sector on the diplomatic stage, regionally and internationally? Maybe give us some insight. And what are the key things that you would like a digital diplomat to know in order to support your sector?
Thank you very much, Daktari, for that. On the tourism space is an interesting one, because not only the private sector through the Kenya Tourism Federation interacts, but we interface with Kenya Tourism Board, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Immigration is another interesting one, and the airports, the entry points into the country. So with the digital diplomats, and we can even start that from the entry points into the Foreign Affairs and also the Tourism Board, because of the marketing, it is important to work together. For example, I'll pick a situation where we had a roadshow, a tourism roadshow in Ghana, and the person on ground who was assisting us was the diplomat. And we worked together, and we were able to market and disseminate information for Kenya's information into the Ghana space, where there were plenty of attendants who are government, private sector, trade players, potential tourists into Kenya. And what we discovered is that the digital diplomats, or the diplomats, not only from the foreign affairs, but when they are going out, it would be a very good idea, and I saw it recently, where there was a meeting between the tourism board and the diplomats that were leaving, so that we send them with factual information, correct information of the destination magical Kenya, and also to keep feeding them into new trends. And especially on the digital platform, it's an opportunity that should be explored, where the packages or the new products or emerging trends can be shared, but specifically to the diplomats. And also information on arrival at JKIA, and even what we were discussing earlier on protection, it is important to have booklets and information at the information desks, which have been set up, especially JKIA, that one I'm aware of. Such points are where the tourists can pick up this information, as well as the diplomats can have them in wherever they are representing Kenya, so that we can prepare them in that way, equip them with material, and also empower them to speak for tourism, because tourism cuts across the sectors. Because without the media, then tourism will not be sent out there. Without the diplomats, and tourism will not be sent out there. Without even the agriculture, and somebody has put up there that agriculture is a catalyst for tourism. So tourism cuts across. It's not only for the Ministry of Tourism or Foreign Affairs or KTF, but it's for everyone, even the workers, the people that work at the airport or entry points, the tour operators. So it's a collective place that I would insist again that information is put together, and information should be the same or should be factual, not having others with certain information and others with different information. That will bring a conflict into the destination. So yes, it's important to prepare. And where I'll also speak into is under immigration, where there is a visa, especially when we're applying for visas to some countries. They even ask for the social media platforms. That one is, are you on WhatsApp? Are you on Twitter? So that information is important, so that one can even do a background check to know who is this person that is coming or inquiring about a visa into our destination. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Susan. My phone was not responding. So I'll move quickly to Professor Babatola, because there was a question there about emerging needs. And I'm sure as a hotelier, you're very aware of this. Nowadays, I think even here in Kenya, even in very simple hotels, the first question the visitor asks is, do you have Wi-Fi? And they also want to know how many sockets are there in my room, because I have a lot of devices to charge. So maybe in the past, the sockets in the room were only for the table lamp and the television. But now the client themselves want several at hand. And this is also increasing the energy demands of a country, and the demand for quality infrastructure and quality connectivity. How are you influencing governments to invest in these kind of facilities, in energy, in telecommunications and ICT infrastructure in order to give the tourists a better experience in your hotels and around the country?
Thank you so much, Dr. Catherine. I must let you understand that I have been involved in management of hotels across Africa for over 10 years. I've had operations apart from Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, even Kenya at a time. And you understand that managing hotels in Africa continent is a function of where you find yourself. I've seen in Accra, for example, energy costs for a good hotel is between 5 to 7%. I've had to intervene in the sacking of a manager because the guy had to exceed about 6% for like 3 consecutive months, which was found to be excessive. But compared to Nigeria, where energy costs for most hotels, if you're doing so well, maybe you'll be getting about 25% of your income spent on energy. So you can see it's different areas, different demographics. And like researches that are being done now for some countries, for example, in cities like Lagos, Abuja, the customers are saying we're giving availability of internet as priority ahead of security. You'll be wondering, everybody wants to be secure, but the customers has realized that having internet facility is even more security than you being incommunicado. So to most hotels that are coming up now,
Okay, we've lost you again, Professor. Although you are raising a very, very important point about, the changing demands of clients on the African continent. And as we wait for Professor Susan, as we wait for Professor to come back, you could just tell us a little also in Kenya, what are the changing demands of the market when it comes to their technology expectations?
Thank you, Dr. Yes, it's interesting situation we find ourselves, because the changing demands now are that even the tour operator vans or vehicles, the tourists are expecting to have Wi-Fi, and considering that that tour van or tour Land Cruiser will pass through various probably counties, for instance, in Kenya, and into their final destination, and the bandwidth changes from one county to another. So that is also a demand that is becoming a reality. And because they want to send whatever they're experiencing, they want to share their experiences real time. It is good for the destination that, if one sees somebody else, like if I see my friend experiencing their holiday and it's fun, it will immediately elicit interest. So that is another way of increasing interest of experiences or for experiences into the magical Kenya. So that is one of the trends that we've seen. And you're right, even the children now are going to a restaurant like mine, for example. We get to a restaurant, or before we go to a holiday destination, they'll ask, "Mom, is there Wi-Fi in that place?" So it's not only the international tourists, but even the domestic tourists is becoming more and more reliable on Wi-Fi and good connectivity. Also on the same note is the new tourist that even the president himself spoke about. It is the digital nomad. The digital nomad will be attracted to a destination because of good connectivity, fast Wi-Fi, and probably even the phones. How easily can they access their local SIM cards? Because I happened to have tourists around last week, and when they arrived, one of them in the group bought a local line, and it is for the reason of wherever they are. There were 3 or so. Wherever they are, they will rely on the hotspot from this number that they bought, and they put data airtime, but not mainly for the calls, but for the hotspot, for the Wi-Fi. So Wi-Fi is number one on people's wish list on the trends nowadays. Thank you.
Yes, and of course nowadays people don't wait until the holiday is over to post their photographs and videos. They're almost live streaming their experiences to their friends and families back home. So that's why they want to be connected even when they're in a very remote area, in a Land Cruiser on a rough road, they're still expecting, which requires a lot of investment from our private sector and also our governments to ensure that all these places are provided with connectivity. Now, I've not been able to see Professor back with us. So maybe since we're drawing to the close, I'll ask you, Isabella, just to give us some insights into the state of tourism education today. Is it one of the popular subjects, or is it one where people perhaps don't have the same amount of interest in entering a very service-oriented kind of career? And what about new destinations? You know, I can see there's a gentleman who had said something about Somalia. And indeed, that's a follow-up question, which I was going to ask, which is that, you know, when they say you give somebody a bad name, it's very difficult for them to recover, even when things have changed a lot. So what can we do as Africa to redeem our bad name and to become because we have so much, all these countries, Somalia, Djibouti, even the northern countries of Africa, South Africa, you know, Lesotho, diverse culture, great natural beauty, wonderful people, but somehow still not very much on the radar as countries that everyone wants to visit. So what can we do to use this technology to change the image that has been created in the media and which is hard to redeem even when a situation has changed? A few insights, Isabella.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, I'll start with the first question about training in tourism. Of course, as at the moment, parents are still expecting students to take the traditional courses, that is the engineering, the medicine, and so on. But tourism as a discipline, generally, it is gaining a lot of traction. And we find young people who are enthusiastic to actually take tourism studies as an area of study. When it comes to postgraduate students, we have seen a lot of headways being made even into research, a lot of recommendations, especially as relates to coming up with new tourism products for Kenya and even for Africa, to avoid the traditional tourism products. And that is generally something that is recommendable. But we are still falling short of the number of visitors to our African countries. Let me take an example like Kenya. We are still struggling to keep the 3 million visitors. And the reason we are struggling is because as Africa, we have not thought about what we call regional integration. When you compare a place like Europe, when you look at Europe as a continent, those countries, the borders are almost knocked off. You find when you talk about the Schengen visa, for instance, those countries, you can visit any of those countries without a visa. So our biggest undoing as Africa is keeping some of these borders and then not opening up to fellow Africans to enjoy the products that we have. For instance, if we talk about like our beaches in Mombasa, we should make it easy for people to travel from somewhere like Kigali, Rwanda, Uganda, to come and have a holiday in Mombasa, for instance. They enjoy our beaches. There's no reason why Kenya should not travel and go to Uganda and go and visit those mountain gorillas, for instance. And the reason is because we continually use the traditional methods of marketing our tourism to international travelers, that is Europe and Americas and Asia, for instance. What about to our fellow Africans? How can we improve infrastructure, connectivity of something like rail? This is something which seems far-fetched. But why shouldn't we make it possible for us to travel from here to South Africa by train, for instance? Why should we maintain very expensive air travel from one country to another simply because of things like taxes? If you want to go to Uganda, how much do you pay an air ticket? Yet the distance is the same by flight from Nairobi to Mombasa. The distance is the same, travel time is the same way you travel from here to Uganda, for instance. But what about when you look at the amount of money you have to pay a ticket? So my continued observation is that we can improve our tourism by first making it attractive within the region, within Africa, which is a very big continent right now, with a lot of potential, a lot of resources, a lot of attractions. And then now we can start actually looking at the international. That's the only way we can now start hitting 10 million, 15 million travelers, maybe per year. So I think another thing is about the image. Yes, are you hearing me?
I don't know why we can't hear, at least I can't hear you, Isabella.
Kate, we cannot hear you.
Okay. I think Mwende, you have to take over. There's something wrong.
Hello, you
So
can
I
hear
think
me?
I'll stop there. I keep on losing my connection. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Isabella. Can everyone hear me, or can you hear me?
Can you hear you, Daktari?
Yeah, we
Hello?
can hear you.
Yes, so it is my duty. I know we're just drawing to the end. I really would like to thank my panelists very, very much. That is Professor Babalola, Susan Ongalo, and Isabella Celotti. I know Roshan was not able to join us, but we hope we will see him in the future. I believe everyone has enjoyed this panel, and there's a lot of very good information that has been shared. And as Mwende has shared in the group, there is a recording, I believe, which is normally posted on the Africa page of the DiploFoundation website. And I think she has put a link. So Mwende, I'll hand over to you. And thank you everyone for staying with us until this moment. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gitao, for moderating what has been a very interesting session. I have learned so much. Thank you to the panelists who have given of their time to be with us this afternoon or evening or morning. And we thank you so much for all the participants who have been with us since the beginning. We thank you for giving us your time. If you more about diabetes and individuals such as yourselves who would be interested in diplomacy and technology, we invite you to log in and just to view the courses that we have. So with that, I want to thank you all and just note that the recording will be shared with you as long as you're a registered participant. And we look forward to continued interaction with yourselves. So thank you so much and have a lovely afternoon, evening, and morning. Thank you very much.
Recording stopped.